The intertidal zone. The intertidal zone is the area in between the high tide and the low tide marks of the ocean. During low tide, the organisms and land are exposed to the air, and during high tide, they're immersed in water. Some of the animals that live in the intertidal zone are snails, sea stars, anemones, and various birds, fish, and crustaceans. Because of the constantly changing environment, the animals of this zone have developed traits to help them deal with the physically changing environment. Some of these traits include water retention for the dry times in low tide, and suction cups on the organisms that allow the animal to adhere to rocks during the rough waves of high tides. There are also various types of plants that live in the intertidal zone. Some of these plants include green, red, and brown algae, as well as surf grasses and eel grasses, which are flowering plants. Some of the algae in this biome possess gas-filled bladders, which allow them to float closer to the surface of the water to obtain sunlight easier. Some other types of algae are able to survive even when they lose 90% of the water in their system, perfect for surviving during low tides. Weather plays an important role in the characteristics of the intertidal zone. Weather conditions can affect whether the water movement will be violent or gentle. The temperature of the biome can range from below freezing to extremely hot, forcing the organisms in the area to have to deal with the changing climate. Also, rainfall and runoff causes the salt concentration of the water to vary. The intertidal zone has subzones as well. The first is known as the spray zone, which is only submerged during storms. It is home to few organisms such as limpets and acorn barnacles. The next is called the high tide zone, which of course is only submerged during the high tide. This extreme environment is home to some plants and animals, such as hermit crabs, which are able to fit into small crevices in rocks, which protect them from the waves. The next zone is the mid-tide zone, which is submerged twice a day. It is home to a variety of plants and animals, such as algae, sea lettuce, and shrimp. Finally, the last zone is the low tide zone, which is submerged for long periods of time. This zone is home to a great number of organisms, such as sea cucumbers, sea palms, and limpets. This zone is home to a large amount of biodiversity. Ecological importance. Intertidal zones are important because they allow scientists to observe regions where two different environments meet, in which a complex web of interactions take place. The intertidal zone is a biodiversity hotspot that can allow scientists to learn much more about the relationships between the land and sea and the organisms that live in them.
Created using Powtoon.